Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to Behind the Page. My name is CJ Tallarico, and I'm extremely excited to introduce today's guest. You know him from his work on The Flash, Flashpoint Beyond, and the new and current Green Lantern book, as well as his work on several Warner Brothers animation films, such as Justice Society World War II, Batman Soul of the Dragon, Batman and Superman Battle of the Super Sons, and the Mortal Kombat Legends films. Jeremy Adams, thank you for joining me today.
Hello. I mean, this is the first time someone's introduced me without saying supernatural. I'm like, wow.
Well, it's funny you said I was about to mention that in the next question, but
Oh, okay.
yeah, so just like I said, you've been involved in Warner Bros. Animation, done some work with Lego, Supernatural, of course. But I was curious as to how long you've been involved in comics. I know that your dad was an artist, so I imagine you've been
Yeah.
surrounded by these books for a long time, but were there any characters or runs that stuck with you growing up?
Oh my gosh, don't ask me that question. That's like, what's your favorite movie question? But I can tell you, I have four issues on my wall framed that for runs that I grew up with that really stuck with me.
Okay.
One was Steve Ditko's Blue Beetle from Modern Comics, then became Charlton Comics that I really loved. My dad had given me a paperback of like the original Doctor Strange adventures, and I really found myself gravitating to Ditko stuff. It was kind of weird and cool. The other stuff was Mark Grunwald when he was running Captain America, and there was a moment where the government comes to Captain America and they're like, "We own this costume, and you need to go on missions for us." And he's like, "I forget you," and he became the agent, the U.S. agent. And
Mhm.
anyways, I can go off of that. I love that. The Frank Miller Daredevil stuff,
Mhm.
specifically the Born Again series, was really huge for me.
Mhm.
And then the other one that was just gigantic was J.M. DeMatteis, I guess, and Keith Giffen and Kevin McGuire's Justice League International hit me like a meteorite. Now, yes, my dad drew some comics, but my parents were divorced when I was very young, and I moved away, and so it was always kind of a safe place to talk about stuff with my dad, you know. And he would always float me comics anytime I'd see him, which was great. And we didn't have a comic store where I was growing up, and so I would just get whatever I could, you know, like spinner racks and antique stores. And I was kind of a nut for it. And there's a lot of runs I really love. I mean, I haven't even mentioned Peter David stuff or
Mhm.
Chris Claremont's, you know, the whole Dark Phoenix saga was gigantic. But this is old man comic stuff. I mean, I love that stuff. And then later on, I'm rambling, by the way, and that's what you get because you asked me to come on a podcast. uh, but like when Joe Quesada took over Marvel, it was just like hit after hit. I remember the one-two punch of Civil War and then Secret Invasion and then World War Hulk was just so good. It
Mhm.
was like it was just nonstop, and it just felt like the events were organic and they bled into each other. And the comics that spin out of that were awesome. Young Avengers and anything Matt Fraction does. Yeah, so I don't know. I can't quantify it. It's like, what's your top? I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, lot of cool shout outs there for sure.
Yeah.
Did you know this whole time you wanted to do something with comics or?
Oh yeah. Oh, so I came at comics backwards. I've always been trying to get into comics, um, but I was a film guy. I wanted to do film and
Mhm.
movies and television, and then I came out here and just grinding away in Los Angeles and trying to get a break. And it took me a long time, longer than most probably. And and the first thing I got was Green Lantern the animated series. And from then I thought, oh, I got a credit. Maybe I can get into comics. Like maybe they'll let me in. And it took me a long, long time. And the reason I got into comics, or the reason they took a chance on me, was because of all the animation work and superhero stuff I had done previously. So I was on a list when Dan Didio was going to do this 5G thing, which was going to be kind of a reboot of the entire DC universe. And so I was on a list with some other animation writers, my friend Tim Sheridan and Megan Fitzmartin and Jesse Campbell and all those people that I've worked with for years. And then that didn't Dan Didio got let go, and they flipped it to Future State, and so this was only like 2.5 years ago,
Mhm.
maybe. And so that was my first comic, was a Future State comic. And I can't tell you the elation I felt because I've been trying to do, like, I've been wanting to do a comic for ages, you know? And so I got to do this DC Black Adam, or DC Future State Black Adam book, and then a backup in Philip Kennedy Johnson's Superman World at War Future State. And those were my first two. And I thought, well, that's it. They'll never let me do anything again. And then I got a call one day and they're like, "Hey, you ever want to do something with the Flash?" I was like, "Yeah." I mean, it was
Who
just the way
wouldn't?
they said it was just kind of like it was like a punishment or something. I was like, "Yeah, what are you talking about?" They're like, "Okay, well, you can write
Mhm.
the Flash then." I'm like, "Okay." So,
That must have been a cool transition. A lot of people give credit to Warner Brothers Animation for like their really faithful adaptations of comic
yeah,
books. That I
yeah.
mean, that makes sense that they trusted you right there from the get-go with your.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. But when I came in, my mentor friend Jim Krieg, who we had done the Scooby Doo crossover episode of Supernatural together, but he's the one who broke me into this industry. And we got to know each other at a Doctor Who night. That's how we got to know each other, and we became fast friends. And he's really kind of mentored me in this industry. And he's a big voice over there for the Warner Brothers animated movies. And there was Alan Burnett, who obviously had done Batman the Animated Series and a thousand other things. And
Mhm.
so getting to kind of learn what they value when it comes to those things, especially when they're doing adaptations, which I haven't done. I don't know if I've done any adaptations, but they would like distill them because you've got a big run of comics and it's like, okay, we've got 78 minutes or 87 minutes to put a movie together. They have to distill it down to what is this about. And they're very conscientious. They're all fans. So there's something about that. But Jim always talks about heart. Like heart is the most important thing. I think it's what he values the most when it comes to storytelling. And by virtue of him being my mentor, it's really drilled into me because I just want to do action and comedy or whatever. But he was always just kind of like, that's all fine and good, but does this mean anything? Does it matter? Is there a heart to it? And I'm always trying to implement that now.
Mhm.
And then by virtue of that, it kind of makes the projects a little more personal, which is fun.
That's cool. He was your mentor for like all that animation stuff under
Oh my
Warner
gosh.
Brothers?
Well, he got me my first job on Green Lantern the animated series, and we were just friends, and but he called me up for Justice League Action, and then from Justice League Action, he gave me basically the story he tells me was Lego was doing DC Superhero Girls was becoming a show. It was a show out there that Shea Fontana very smartly ran, and they were going to do a Lego version, and Lego came to Jim and said, "Hey, we need somebody to write this." And initially, they were going to get somebody else, but then they were like, "But we only have like a week." And
Mhm.
he's like, "There's only one guy I know that can write this fast." And luckily, I have a reputation for writing things very, very, very quickly, which can come in handy. And so they called me up, and that started my kind of, I mean, almost a decade long relationship with Lego and other things. So
Mhm.
Jim's always been there. We're really good friends, but I just asked him today, I was like, "Is it weird I still call you my mentor?" you know, but he still gives me advice, and he would really go through my scripts and like, this is why you don't do this, and this is why you do this, and sometimes it was harsh, at least from my eyes, because I'm an artist, but it was like really valuable information. And it was great. It was great. So yeah, he's helped me. It hasn't been everything at Warner Brothers, but once you build a reputation and people trust you, then that opens a lot more doors to, I always say you can be two of these three things. Neil Gaiman gives his commencement speech when he talks about you can be two of these three things. You can be either really good, on time, or really great to work with. And you can only be one of those two things or two of those three things. And I could never tell if I was really good because somebody would hire me and go, "You have the best dialogue ever," and somebody else would go, "I hate your dialogue, but I love the way you write action." Like there's a subjective element to writing and creativity, which the people in charge may like it or may not like it. That's not on you.
Mhm.
But I knew for a fact that I could absolutely control being on time, and I was always early, and being really great to work with. Those were the two things that I tried my best at trying to control the controllables. And because of that, if you can not be insane, you have a leg up on a lot of people.
That was very cool. That's awesome. I feel like it sounds like a lot of that work with heart translates to your work too. Are you cool if I shift gears to Green Lantern for a bit real quick?
Absolutely, let's do it.
Awesome. So first off, I want to congratulate you on the release of issue 1. Like I
Thank
showed you, I
you.
had to bring out the power ring. I thought
Yeah, yeah.
amazing issue. Um, Me and everyone I've talked to about it just loves it.
Great.
So just for those who haven't read it yet, spinning out of Dark Crisis, the Guardians have quarantined Sector 2814, and with that Hal 2, he returns home We get a little glimpse at Sinestro in this issue and a lot of other cool stuff. But like you said, this isn't your first time working on a Green Lantern. You did some work on the animated series. So how
Right.
does it feel returning to that mythos?
Scary.
Yeah.
Like even when I was doing the Flash, there was so much mythology behind it, and so like such a big history. And so Green Lantern is like twice that, you know. And for it to be wieldy for me, I had to really strip it down and make it smaller. And hopefully, my goal is to make people really like Hal Jordan in a way that as it expands, as we get bigger in the story, people will be along for that ride. But it's hard. I think it's hard. It's a scary thing because I'm taking the story the way I want to go after Jeff Thorne's like big sci-fi epic run, and he did this big high concept sci-fi thing, and it was really wild. And it ended like Guardians are gone, so it's like the United Planets are the ones that run the core, and the United Planets are the ones that quarantine. So I'm
Mm.
like, okay, what's the story that I have? Why would Hal come back to Earth? What would all that? So I've been, you know, I know what I want to do for the next year. Hopefully, sales don't crater and they let me keep doing it. But it's hard. It's hard. It's intimidating because there's a lot of expectation. You're like, as an artist in something that is like in commerce and art, right? And it's like I want to do something that I love writing, that I'm enjoying. And at the same hand, you're like, these aren't my characters. They're beholden to a big machine, a company that owns these. So you have to do right by them. And then the other, to me, shareholder in Green Lantern is always going to be the fans. And it's like, I want to make them happy too. I want to make them proud. I want them to pick up the book and be excited about reading it. And there's a lot of that's heavy. Like,
I mean, I love the cosmic aspect of Green Lantern as much
yeah,
as the next person, but like you were saying, I feel like having Hal grounded on Earth right now, a great way to, a great story to tell and way to introduce readers to the book. With,
right,
you have Hal living in his brother's RV. He's barely got
right.
any money to his name.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, I think that's all super cool. One thing that I thought was really cool too was that plane scene. I mean,
oh
reading
my
it,
gosh,
like it felt like I was back watching Top Gun.
I know,
You
right?
and
Yeah,
yeah, Xermonico, you two work together on the Flashpoint Beyond. How
yeah.
is it working together on this book? I mean, the art's just amazing.
I mean, that's the thing. When they asked me to do this book, they were like, "Oh yeah, and Xermanico is going to be your artist." I was like, well, I can't screw it up. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like he's that good, and he's so committed to making it better. So if I write something down, I'll be like, oh, what if I do this, or what if I add this, or what do you think of these 6 different versions? And I'm like, I can barely dress myself, dude. Like you can do whatever you want because you are a master of your craft. And every time I've seen him do something, I'm just like, ugh. So now I just keep, especially when issue 3 comes out. Now I'm just like, how can I want to see what I'm excited because I'm like, ooh, I wonder what he could draw. Like I jokingly refer to him as he's my ring, like he's the one that really puts the constructs together, but he's so good at it. And that playing scene, under lesser hands would just be kind of boring and blasé. But it was really, really fun. I saw somebody mad because the goat gets blown off the mountain, and I was like, man, mountain goats are indestructible. Like that goat's fine. But I thought it was funny.
That is pretty funny. That is, yeah. I mean, like, just when I was reading it, you open up page one and it's Hal saving the construction worker. It's just like
Yeah,
you're right. It's just amazing. I'm like, that's Hal Jordan. Yeah,
that's how he's a
so good.
hero.
Hmm.
I think that's where my writing comes from, at least with superheroes. Like I get it. There's a place to deconstruct superheroes. There's a place to do dark themes and stuff, but that's not necessarily me, and
Hmm.
that's not who me as a writer. Like I want to, if it has hero in the title, if it's a superhero, then it's like I want them to be heroes. I want us to root for them. I want us to like them. And Hal's got a lot of rough edges.
Hmm.
And it's like, is it even appropriate that he's pursuing Carol and Carol's married, or not married, but Carol has a fiance, and it's like, but he loves her, but is it appropriate? And should they even be together? Which I got to tell you, I don't know. Even as the writer, I was like, I don't know how that story ends because
Uh-huh.
I'm kind of exploring it. It's like, oh yeah, the ex-boyfriend's in town. This girl's moved on. Her life is happy, and here
Hmm.
comes this guy
Yeah, that was
that is
so funny when
troubling.
she saw on the TV and he was like, "Oh crap."
I
Um,
don't know.
yeah, I like that you were talking about like just that aspect of the hero there. That I'm gonna ask some more questions about your Flash in just a
Right.
moment, but for now, I want to say since your Flash book, it turns to the DC universe for its heroes a lot. Like we see a lot of Mr. Terrific, some Doctor Fate, and so much more. Do you have any plans for appearances from other DC characters, like turning to the universe the same way you did in this book?
I hope so. I mean, that's as a fan, that's always been like that's always been a joy of mine. Is like if you have a bunch of action figures that you get to play with, because when I was in my day, we didn't have video games, we had action figures. And you don't just play with one,
Yeah.
you know, right? And I think part of this story is that Hal Jordan's returning to Earth, and with that comes the fact that he has these friends, and it's a really unique time in DC Comics right now because when Joshua Williamson did Dark Crisis, it's so much about legacy characters. And obviously Tom Taylor's doing Titans and Nightwing, and there's all these legacy characters that are getting the spotlight.
Hmm.
So you also have the characters that have families, obviously, Superman, Green Arrow, Wally, but there's these other characters, the older characters, not the JSA version characters, but the old like leaguers
Yeah.
basically. And if the legacy characters are getting all this attention, it's kind of an interesting time to explore the introspectiveness of what these guys are going through because their sidekicks are grown up.
Hmm.
And where does that leave them? Have they grown up? I think Hal's big thing is like he's been away. He's been fighting battles in the cosmos, and it's like, well, what are you fighting for? And and should something change? Are you really living if you have no home?
Hmm.
And so there's just some of those kind of like bigger themes I like to mess around with. I mean, beyond that, also trying to figure out cool constructs or cool ways to use constructs, which is
Yeah.
like a
That's got to
continuing
be so
battle.
cool.
Oh, it is cool, but it's super hard because
Yeah.
you're just like, I don't want to do a boxing glove. I don't want to do a boxing glove, but I kind of do want to do a boxing glove. But you're like, I got to be better than a boxing glove.
Hmm.
So
That's funny. Just with all those constructs in mind, I know featured in the back of the book, Phil Kennedy Johnson is starting to tell his John Stewart story. Are there
mm.
any chances we might see other members of the Green Lantern Corps play a role in the book, if that's something you can talk about?
I mean, eventually, I hope. I hope. Philip
Hmm.
and I were just talking the other day, and just trying to figure out where our books can start touching on each other at
Okay.
some point. And he's got this. I mean, if anybody hasn't read Philip Kennedy Johnson, they don't understand. But it's like, dude, go read his books. You'll
Yeah. Go check
understand.
out War World Saga.
Yeah, it's. I mean, he's stupidly good. It's frustrating,
Hmm.
and so he's making this John Stewart story that's just like it's out of control, cool. Um, and we both are talk about the other lanterns and what that looks like, but I wanted. How do I put this? Like I did this with the Flash. It was like I needed to start out with Wally.
Hmm.
And it was almost all about Wally. Obviously, he was trapped in time and jumped quantum leaping around. But then it became about Wally, and then it was Wally and his kids, and Wally and Linda, and then it was okay. Now we're bringing in Jesse Quick, and we're bringing in Max Mercury, and we're kind of holistically bringing in other characters to build out that family. But I only think it worked because we spent time with each individual character as it moved on and grew.
Hmm.
So I'm hoping that can be the case with this because I want to get, and even as a writer who's trying to find the voice of a particular character, it's like I want to spend time with that character before I bring other people in,
Yeah.
and so that's what I'm trying to do. And it's just because I want to make the best book I can, and I want people to enjoy it too. But if I just jumped in and suddenly Kyle Rayner shows up the next day, it's just going to be super unearned.
Hmm.
And as much as people want that, I don't think they really want that.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. That's one thing I really like about your Flash, and like it seems like there's gonna be a lot of in this Green Lantern book. Those like personable moments where we get to spend time with the characters. I'm very excited for that preview you put out of Hal and Kilowog just like toasting outside the RV. That looked like so much fun.
Yeah, there's a lot to that. Kilowog, it's like why is even Kilowog on Earth? And I can't say much more from all that.
Well, we'll be reading. So issue 2 releases June 13th. Make sure you check it out, and
Yeah.
check out issue 1 if you haven't. Amazing.
Yeah.
With that, I do want to talk about the Flash a bit. So
Great.
me and the rest of the world wishes you could have written Wally in the Flash family in this title for the rest of time.
I
But
agree.
even still, even still, you've gotten to do some really amazing things in this book that I want to
Yeah.
highlight and talk to you about a couple of them. So just first, how did it feel being the one to bring Wally back as the main and acting Flash in the DC universe?
I don't I don't think I don't know. I only say that because he'd been back, but as the main Flash of the
Yeah,
title, obviously. He hadn't. And it was like I don't think I understood the importance of that. I
the
think
gravity.
I think having him back would be one thing, but I think right away, if you look at like the first interview I did, it was like I promised that as long as I'm writing Wally, he's going to be okay. Like that was my it was both a promise and a threat.
Mhm.
It was like as long as I'm writing him, he's going to be fine, guys. And it was like I think that helped fans feel a little better because I think they understood that I really liked this character and that I felt very invested in it and I didn't want to do anything bad to him. I wanted him to go on fun adventures. I wanted it to be like Doctor Who. I wanted it to be crazy and running around and whatever. Um, but then I started noticing fans in particular, they were like cheerleaders more than anything. And they were just really responding in a positive way and really encouraging me to keep loving on the character. And I had so much fun doing that and tried my best to do it. I mean, to the point that like when they told me they were taking me off the book, I was literally the first thing I said was like, "Are the kids going to be okay?" Like it was like that's how sick. I mean, like
Yeah.
I was that's how invested I was because I just wanted to make sure these characters were going to be fine. And
Mhm.
and then it's like, oh, I don't know these characters. I don't, whatever. But yeah, it was fun to see the responses, and I knew building toward the first annual that I did that uh, with the conversations with Roy at Sanctuary and all that stuff, I kind of that I had hoped it would come off the way that it came off in
Mhm.
terms of like people seem to respond and they're like, oh my gosh, you know, we're fixing his persona.
That's what I was about to just bring up. That at the very start of this run, you make some changes to Heroes in Crisis. So
Yeah,
I love Tom King as much as the next guy, but I
yeah,
did
me
feel
too.
that it was necessary to make these changes so that readers could, still sympathize with the character of Wally
Right,
West. Was that a
right.
hard sell to DC?
Uh, so yes, ish. Like I originally asked if I could just reboot it completely.
Hmm.
Um, Everything I did in 1 Minute War in regards to Heroes in Crisis was exactly together. That's what I pitched at the beginning, and they said no, and
Hmm.
I said, but please, but I want to.
Hmm.
And I was like, and they're like, no, you can explain the surge of energy. Like I was like, okay, so I can do that, and that's what that whole arc was about, obviously, and how it wasn't. He didn't lose control. It was just this thing that exploded out of him because what we found out was, the Speed Force was trying to expel Savitar from inside of it. Um, so that was good. So that took away. It's not his fault that these people died, right?
Yeah.
But you can see, and obviously there's a page in one of the 1 Minute Wars where it's like previously on the Flash, and you can see that even when they told me I couldn't do it, I was like, I'm going to do it. I kept thinking, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I had that whisper between Gold Beetle and Wally, and I knew what that was going to be. And I was hoping for another issue of 1 Minute War because I wanted to show the scene, which I thought was funny because Tom had put this scene in Heroes in Crisis where Booster Gold and Blue Beetle had gone to the future and got the clone of Wally as a corpse, and they brought it back to close like the time loop. And I
Mhm.
literally wanted to have them run out and then like Gold Beetle sneak back in and then just like show her like throwing all these bodies onto the ground of other people, because she saved everybody from there. I thought it would be so funny, but I didn't have the space. But yeah, that was, um, I wanted to do that very early on, and at first they were like no in terms of they were fine. I think they were fine with the surge aspect, and this
Mhm.
is the thing. I think Tom is fine with the retcon aspect because that's comic books. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? And what's weird about it is by me doing that and telling the story, it's made Heroes in Crisis canon. You know, we
Mhm.
could have acted like it didn't happen, but one of the things I loved about Wally was that all his trauma informed his hope and his triumph. And
Mhm.
so a guy that's lost everything, but then gets it back and gets the redemption of knowing that it's not his fault or whatever. It's like that was the main part of that arc. It's like, don't leave before the miracle happens, because you don't know what tomorrow may bring. And you didn't, if you ended it, he wouldn't have known that it was because of Savitar or whatever. I
Mhm.
don't know. I liked it.
You talking about that in my head, I'm like, are you sure you can't write issue 801? Come on, can you just keep going?
Oh, I know.
But you were talking about Gold Beetle, a great character you introduced us to at the start of this book. Do you have any more plans? Do you want to play with her more in the future?
Please. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, that was the first character I got to create for DC, and
Mhm.
I
And
and I
what
had
a cool one.
I had so much fun doing it. And yeah, I mean, if people have caught up to 799, it's like her and Omega Bam Man to me are like a great team, and I really enjoy them a great deal. I don't, I think Omega Bam Man could show up in Green Lantern, just because the Green Lanterns have been trying to shut down, uh,
Mhm.
Wham for a while, the Wrestlers of Cosmic Multiverse. Gold Beetle, on the other hand, I I want to have her in my back pocket at all times.
Okay.
I want her to come out. I don't want to bring her out all the time. I mean, if somebody came to me and say, "Hey, you want to do a miniseries?" I'd be like, "Let's go!"
Mhm.
Her and the kids or whatever, or like a future version that's like not the Legion, but like the offshoot of the Legion.
Yeah.
It would be amazing, because I love her. I mean, again, she was my Doctor Who, my proxy. It was like she showed up. Her first appearance is in Black Adam, Future State, and
Mhm.
La Cucaracha plays, and this golden beetle smashes down, and you're like, what is happening? you know? And I'd love to write, Blue Beetle or Booster Gold meeting her, being like,
Yeah.
what is this?
That would be so cool.
Yeah.
Another really cool thing, issue 774, I believe it is. That's the one that your daughter helped you out with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
talk about the creative process on that a little bit?
Yeah, it was awesome. I got a call from my editor at the time, in the car, and we talked about something, and I hung up, and my daughter just started rambling for like 30 minutes. You know what you should do, Dad? You should do blah, 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 blah. And I go, well, you should make your own comic book. And I thought, maybe we should make our own comic book. And so I called my editor back, and I said, hey, can I write a comic with my daughter? And they said, yeah. And so I went to the store with her and bought some snacks and LaCroix, and brought out a whiteboard and showed her what 3 acts were. And we just spitballed. And I videotaped the whole thing. And she came up with Dr. Nightmare, and she started like drawing all the characters. And so we sent it to Christian Duce, and he like illustrated all the characters. And unfortunately, I was really disappointed, because when the uh, FOC stuff came out or whatever, they didn't have her name on it, but they said legally they couldn't, and I was so
Mm.
mad.
Yeah.
But she's kind of pragmatic. I said, well, listen, they could either shelve this book, or or and it never comes out, or it comes out and my name's on it, but it'll just say Adams, so on the front, so that'll be good. I said, and we'll it'll still come out. And she goes, well, if it comes out, do I still get paid? I was like, yes, you do. And she's like, well, I guess it's coming out. I'm like, okay. And I
That's
swear to you,
hilarious.
she's still living on that comic book money. Like, she still has some, and she's just slowly dripping it out. And then I have a younger daughter who sees this, and she's like, what about me? Like, and I'm like, whoa, 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 hold on. You're not old enough yet, because her ideas are like, there's a jelly bean guy. And I'm like, okay, no. But it was so touching, because getting to do that with her was amazing. Um, Seeing her creations kind of brought to life was amazing. Uh, but that issue is so much about how much I love my daughter. Like, we had just come back from a daddy daughter dance, and it was just all that pieces in there. It's like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be one of those things that we get to cherish forever.
That's adorable. That's awesome. Yeah, that issue's so great too. I do want to talk about too another one of my favorite issues. I had to pull it out just because it's so cool. 776, the Dr.
Yeah,
Fate issue.
totally. Totally.
constantly breaking the fourth wall, having awesome things for the readers to do, like turn the page
Yeah.
upside down, blow on it, find the little glyphs throughout it. What was it like writing that issue? It must have been so cool.
It was super cool. I mean, I thought about the idea a long time ago. I think I thought about it as a Doctor Strange idea or something.
Mm.
And you read, if you have kids, you read a bunch of books that are kind of like interactive in a way. I was like, oh man, I got to do this in like a comic book form. So when I wrote it, Fernando Passarin, who's been, my main artist, who I love dearly, who just gets it, I
Mhm.
would I would write it, and then I had to print it out, and then I had to like like tape it together, like staple it together the right way, because the way they had to print it was like it can't be normal. You had to flip this page upside down and this page sideways so that when you did the thing, it worked correctly. My I love it. It was great. It just drove me nuts because it was like they'd be like, turn the page, and you turn the page, it'd be like an ad. Be like, no, like it's,
Mhm.
but it works better in the trade. Um, but yeah, it was great. And it, I don't know if my editor was like, I think he was just like, you're crazy, or whatever. But I thought it worked well. Somebody posted that they had broke their computer screen because they were like trying to flip it, you know. And I think one of the things that was great was it wasn't just that, like that gimmick was really fun, but I thought about doing that glyph thing at the end. It's like, oh, you got to find the glyphs and touch it at the right order. And I was like, I can't tell you how many people went back and were like, where's the glyph? And even when I got the art from Fernando, I couldn't find it. I was like, where is it, dude? You like
Mhm.
made it too tough for me, So it was really fun. It was really fun.
Yeah, that's such a fun issue. And then the 1 minute war, such a great arc. So in that we finally have the return of Impulse in this book, so many great speedsters coming together, and the reveal of Wade West. How long have you had this arc and everything like about it in mind? Did you always want to introduce Wade in that way?
Um, I I'm trying to think so the 1 minute war arc came out of the fact that I was going to do an issue where, well, I had Linda that was pregnant. And
Mhm.
part of the reason that I thought that would be interesting is there is a trope in television, TV, whatever, in comics where, people have twins. It's like they have twins. That's like everybody has too many twins. And I just thought, oh, what'd be interesting is I haven't seen a family of three in terms of, at least in DC, it just puts another wrinkle in it that I haven't seen.
Mhm.
I was finding myself being so excited about writing the kids anyways, because I just felt like, oh, all the DC kids had kind of grown up. Young Justice was older, and I thought, oh, there's this really great space for kid superheroes that would be fun to work on. And it was obviously Irie's great. The minute I did the action log with Jay, I was like, I know who this kid is. And then it was like Maxine showed up, and then I thought, gosh, it would be really funny to have a little kid show up at some point. And so my original pitch, the reason 1 minute war came about was I was going to have this, and you see it in 798 and 799. I was going to have Linda have a baby, and then it was going to be actually the whole. I'm babbling, but it was going to be an issue that starts with Wally sweating and looking worn out because he's running super fast, and he knows the minute he slows down, his newborn child is going to die because there's going to be an explosion in the hospital, and he's just running super fast trying to figure out how to stop it, and he can't stop it. And he knows the minute he slows down, that explosion is going to happen and his kid's going to die. He just knows it. He can't save the kid. He can't go back in time. There was like this aspect to it that I was just like, oh, this is so sad. But what was going to happen was he was going to mourn, and then suddenly our man was going to show up and be like, your kid's not dead. you know he was captured by blah 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 blah,
Mhm.
and all the stuff that I kind of played very quickly at the end of my run with 798 and 799. And that
Mhm.
was going to introduce Mr. Terrific's son and a
Yeah.
couple other DC, like lost DC kids in a way. And so they said no. They were like, nobody wants to read about a kid getting blown up and like it being very sad. And so no.
Mhm.
And I was like, ugh, that bummed me out. But then I hung up, and it was that thought of like, a speedster running very fast and everything kind of slowing down, that I was like, oh man, wouldn't it be wild, if aliens attacked and they had speed powers. And then I call back up and it was like, I have this other idea for 1 Minute War. And the minute Paul heard 1 Minute War, he's like, yes, absolutely. I don't even know what it's about, but yes, you know?
Yeah.
And so then having Wade show up was part of that. And I've always kind of messed with time, especially with Gold Beetle
Hmm.
and a little bit of like forward thinking and what happens in the future and Planet Flash and all that stuff. But the 1 Minute War was really, it wasn't necessarily about the bad guys as it was about showing us about the good guys. You know, it was really about the different characters in the Flash family and trying to show the reader that, yeah, they all have speed powers, but they're so different. And you can see that when you pull away their powers in a way. So anyways, it was really fun. And a lot of that came, a lot of the interactions and stuff that I didn't expect, like, you know, Ace and Bart, like I was like, oh, these guys are kind of antagonists as I'm writing it. And then I was like, oh, but then they're kind of like, they become friends because Bart's crazy and Ace is
Hmm.
kind of responsible, you know, and the Jesse Quick of it, and just Max Mercury and Jay Garrick, obviously. Just, it was just a great time to be able to write these characters and see what's going on. And anyways, I had fun.
Yeah, it was so cool in 790 when you have like what each character's doing. I do
Right.
want to ask though, just for like my own peace of mind. So Wally is my favorite, like Flash favorite speedster, but second to him is Max Mercury. That I wanted to ask if you had a plan for when he runs off into the unknown with Impulse, if or if that's a story you would tell another day.
I uh yes and no. Like I wanted to give them, that's kind of been Max Mercury's thing, is like he's never been able to move past this time frame in a way.
Hmm.
And his relationship with Bart is so sweet. You
Yeah.
know, it's like father son in a way. And I love the idea that he thought he could do this alone, but Bart's like, no, man, like we're family.
Hmm.
And just the idea of Max Mercury and Bart somewhere doing something is like, to me, that's a great story. I don't care. I don't know what it is necessarily, but it's just like that's something I want to read. But
Hmm.
I also wanted to give 1 Minute War was also an off ramp for potential stories for other characters, and that was kind of a piece of that, because I wanted to do something with Max and Bart, and you know, Jay Garrick. I get to play with in the miniseries I have coming up, and but uh, you know, even Liberty Bell, to me, like bringing back Liberty Bell
That was cool.
and thinking about her as a character, I think is a really really cool character. Um, yeah, so Max and Bart, I would really love the chance to do something.
Hmm.
Um, Sometimes it's about, I'm finding out because I'm very new at this stuff, is like just setting the stage for other stories that you can tell later on. Like me having Gold Beetle whisper in Wally's ear pays off years later, you know, and planting seeds. I mean, I really tracked some stuff. Like it's even when like Gold Beetle's like, hey, first time you see me, make sure you don't get me with the stun disc. It's like I had to make sure that the first time she gets hit with the stun disc. Like I had,
Yeah.
you know, there's the things I'm tracking, or the Mr. Terrific of it, you know, all
Hmm.
his different companies that he owns and stuff.
Yeah. That's cool. You mentioned the Jay Garrick book, so that releases October 3rd. Was
Yeah.
that a story you wanted to incorporate into the Flash that you span off of,
No,
or no?
no, that Jeff Johns came to me. You know, we become quite friendly, and you know, it's just beyond me, you know. And it's like this guy that I've read so much of his stuff growing up, and he's kind of, I mean, I don't know if anybody outside of Frank Miller's made as many big swings in terms of changing story and continuity. I mean, Flashpoint Beyond, or Flashpoint in general, has been redone a billion times now, and then you have all the Green Lantern mythology, which is just ridiculous. But
Yeah.
I remember reading like Teen Titans, everything he did. Anyways, he had done he had come up with this concept called New Golden Age, and it was kind of spinning out of Flashpoint Beyond, and then it rolled into Stargirl and his JSA run, and then he introduced a bunch of kids in Stargirl, which is hilarious because again, it's just a weird thing where sometimes we're on the same wavelength, and it's like I want to introduce these kids, and he's like, I'm introducing 30, you know. And he said, you know, you're a dad, Jeremy, and Jay Garrick is now a dad and has his daughter, and like, would you want to do a book exploring that? And I'm like, I am the Mikey likes it of comic books. If you offer me to do one, I will do one, you know.
Mhm.
And it was kind of hard. There was a little bit of a hurdle because I was like, there's so many speedsters. why are we having another speedster? And then when I hit on the thing that I'm having problems with, I'm like, okay, that has to be this. That has to be what this is about.
Yeah.
This has to be about why should we have this person, and it has to be about like how can I get people to like her, because that starts with me liking her and figuring out the relationship between Jay and her, and then it's like, oh, she's out of time, she's from the 40s or whatever, and now she's in modern day, and Jay is like the ultimate helicopter parent because he has super speed, so there's some of that that's really fun, and I'm just scratching the surface of it now. So
It sounds super cool. I was looking up like discussion posts about it, and there was one comment under like the first official solicitation of it that was just like, I'm a simple man. I see Jeremy Adams in the Flash and I pull it. I can't agree with that more.
I hope. I mean, I will tell you the art is unbelievable. Whoa, sorry, the art is unbelievable. It's really, really, really good.
I can't wait. Yeah.
I'm I'm excited for that piece of it because I think everybody will. I hope they'll enjoy it. I never know, man. I'm scared to death every time I put out a comic. I'm like, I hope you guys like it.
I'm sure we will. Are you cool if I ask a couple general questions real
Yeah,
quick?
sure. Yeah.
Awesome. So in your time at DC so far, have there been any characters in finding their voice that have come particularly easy, or some that have been especially a challenge?
Um, that's a good question, by the way. Um, I mean, I've only it's weird because I've lived with these characters for so long in my head, just being a fan of comics, that it's not that hard. I will tell you that it's been easy to do like my spin on characters a little bit. Like when originally I wanted Ted Cord instead of Mr. Terrific, and they said you couldn't use Ted Cord. And they're like, what other wealthy, smart people are there? And it's like, okay, Mr. Terrific. I was like, great. and but I'd always read Mr. Terrific as very like Vulcan, like
Mhm.
emotionless. And so when he shows up and he has like this really cool car, and he tells Wally he's fired from the Jiffy Lube, that he owns, I
Mhm.
was like, oh, okay, I know who he is now. And he's Buckaroo Banzai, and he's this guy that has 1,000 companies, and he's got a bunch of labs, and he's a scientist, but he's not unemotional. He's got other stuff going on. And then I was like, oh, I get this. And then I started having a lot of fun writing him. I also got a lot of fun writing, Maxine, like I said, was
Yeah.
just like, oh my gosh. And I feel like you can do that with some characters that maybe not Mr. Terrific, mind you, because he's been written a lot, but like somebody like Maxine, even though Lemire's run on Animal Man is so amazing, I felt like she was a little older, so I could play with her personality a little bit.
Hmm.
As far as difficult, I don't know, man. I I like I said, I don't find them particularly difficult.
That's a good thing if there's not an answer though, right?
Yeah, 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 I hope so. I do find myself always just trying to figure it out. I felt that way about Hal. I wasn't entirely sure um, what what voice of Hal I wanted to do, but I think I got it.
Hmm.
So we'll
I
see.
mean, of the first issue, it seems like you did. Are there any like Green Lanterns you like in terms of members of the Corps? Did you have a favorite growing up then?
Yeah, Guy Gardner.
Oh yeah.
Mostly because he was in Justice League International. And I was like, what a jerk. He's like the
Hmm.
Dennis Leary of, the Justice League International. And I love that he was just like singing God Bless America as he's fighting the Red Rockets, like I was the Rocket Reds. I was like, this guy's nuts. And then they did that really funny thing in the book where he gets knocked out and he becomes like a pacifist for like a year, and then he comes back when Lobo, there's a boom tube that opens up and Lobo knocks him and he's back to being a jerk. And I was like, I've never seen that in a comic where they held on to that joke for so long.
Hmm.
And then here's this real jerky guy that kind of has a heart of gold. And I really like that.
That's funny.
I have a lot of friends like that. Yeah, he's a total a-hole, but man, he has your back.
That's cool. Do you have any advice for people wanting to break into the industry, or something that you'd like to tell that you wish you could have told yourself at the start of your career in writing?
Oh, well, the first thing is you've got to write. You've got to have something
Hmm.
to show. When I moved to LA, I wanted to be a writer director and all that stuff, and I was so scared to direct that writing was a little less hard in terms of like fear. But it still took me forever, and people be like, "Oh, what have you written?" or whatever, and I'm like, "Oh." So you have to write, you have to have something, because at the moment where somebody says, "Oh, gives you a chance,"
Hmm.
then you need to take it. We live in a time in which the creators are more accessible than any time ever. And if you maintain a level of professionalism and not being insane, you can have a lot of access to those people. And eventually you might have the opportunity to, somewhere down the line, ask them like, "Hey, would you mind taking a look at this?" And they can give you feedback or whatever. But you always be grateful if they say yes. If they say no, then it's like, okay, that's it. Um, but I would say don't be crazy, have something written, and just keep pushing forward. It is something in which the supply outstrips the demand by 1 billion to 1.
Yeah.
Uh, I tell the story when I moved to the summer before I came to LA. I was at a Carl's Jr. in Lancashire by Universal because I was interviewing to be an assistant, and I was in the drive-through and I saw the person at the drive-through hand the food to the person in the car. And then immediately his hand went back in and then he handed a script to the person in the car. And I was like, oh my gosh, even the drive-through guys have scripts. It was really shocking. I know. So I would say write stuff, have
Okay.
stuff ready to go, be nice, reach out, interact with people. Um, but especially with comic books, I've heard over and over again people say, do your own indie comics. The bar's so low to get things made. You can get things made. Make it
Hmm.
yourself. Do it small so that you have a proof of concept that you can get to somebody.
Hmm. Very, very cool. Thank you for that advice. I just have two more questions then on that note. Looking back at from where you are now to the start of then that career in writing, is there any project that you're most proud of?
Oh, um,
I know it's like picking kids, but
I know it's hard. I really, that's hard. Uh, so so some of them are recently. Obviously, Scooby Natural, the Scooby Doo crossover for Supernatural, was it was one of those once in a lifetime opportunities that everybody said yes to, and Jim and I just kept thinking they're going to stop us. They have to stop us. And they never did. And the notes were so small; they were like tiny things. They were like, "Oh, on page 35, this is really funny." We're like, thanks. And then they premiered it at the Paley Fest at the Kodak Theater where they do the Academy Awards. And we're sitting there watching our show on a big screen and people are just roaring with laughter. And we're in the show over Dean's shoulder. And it was like, this is crazy. Like
Mhm.
this was amazing. That was an amazing opportunity. The other ones are well, I should say Batman Soul of the Dragon was great because I had this amazing time getting to know Bruce Timm and Jim Krieg, and we were just having so much fun talking about the movie, making this bananas movie. And it was so much fun, and we liked it so much. For me, it was like, I don't care if anybody doesn't like it, I love it.
Mhm.
And that's kind of the best place to be because then it's like you're critic proof. It's like I get it. If you don't like it, I get it, but I love it. And then I really like Battle of the Super Sons a lot. It means a lot to me. I've been doing movies with Rick Morales for ages. And that was really good. There is one coming up, the Johnny Cage movie that's coming up that is
Okay.
violent, vulgar, and bananas. And it is it is so me. I mean, not the vulgar part, but it is so like just inside my brain a little bit. And the fact that it came out as good as it did is preposterous. And it should never have been made. Like the
Mhm.
fact that somebody let us make it is just ridiculous. So
That's awesome. All your work on those Mortal Kombat movies have been so cool that I can't wait.
thank
Um,
you.
One final question. This one's really important. I asked Mark Wade this last week. The people need to
Okay.
know, what music does your Wally West listen to when he runs?
Oh my gosh. Uh but this is a thing. I'm such an old man. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
there's a certain level of I'm sure I could say some sort of, you know, hair rock stuff that's like Def Leppard, of some sort. Probably just because he was in the 80s and he was,
Mhm.
I don't know. I probably say that, but now that he's a dad, it's probably yacht rock. He's probably listening to little Christopher Cross or Kenny Loggins as he's running. I
Uh-huh.
don't.
That's awesome. Yeah.
What did Mark say?
What's that?
What did Mark say?
He didn't have an answer. He said something along the lines of like the music he listened to was like it predates even Wally West, that he didn't really
Yeah,
have
see,
something to give.
yeah. It's an age thing.
Yeah, he apologized. I was like, no, no, I get it. Don't worry. But thank you so much for joining me. This was really amazing.
Thank
Of
you for the
course.
opportunity.
Of course, yeah. All right. Have a great rest of your day. I really appreciate it.
No problem. You too.
See ya.
All right, bye.
I'd like to give a final thank you to Jeremy Adams for coming on the podcast. Make sure you check out his Green Lantern book coming out if you haven't already, Flash 800 when that releases June 6th, and his Jay Garrick book when that releases this October. Thank you, Jeremy Adams. Thank you all for listening to Behind the Page. I'll see you all next time.